morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Malaysia. Hello. Okay. We have three panelists here, and today our topic is, what is a strong school made of? What is it about? Is it the teachers? Is it the process? Is it the student outcome? So we have three panelists. We have the first one, Animesh from Global. We have Dr. Jerrylyn from Faith University, Philippines. And we have Professor Duffy. Peter Duffy from Australia. So we have three questions here. Actually, we have four questions. So since there are only three of them here, so we have three questions for each one of them, right? In fact, Professor Patrick was telling me just now that we have already started teaching even before AI existed. So AI has helped us a lot, especially for me. AI has helped a lot on lifestyle, health, exercises, beauty tips, yeah? So I'm just beyond school, right? Okay. Our first question to all three of them, maybe you can say some introduction of yourself first.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Animesh. I'm the Chief of Partnerships at Global School Leaders. We focus on elevating school leadership across the Global South. We are a US-based NGO but work across the Global South, and my work there is field building and strengthening policies to strengthen school leadership in the Global South. And I'm happy to connect after these half hours as well if you're interested in talking about school leadership.
Hello everyone. Good morning. In faith colleges, we usually say good morning, even if it's afternoon, to keep the vibe going. So good morning. My name is Jerrylyn. It's hard to pronounce. You can just call me Jay or Jerry. I'm actually a dean, a full-time dean in a College of Arts, Sciences and Education at Faith Colleges. But another work that I do is developing teacher training programs across the nation. And just this last Saturday, I delivered the third leg of the training program in Abu Dhabi. So I'm very happy to be here and honored to be here with my co-panelists here.
Similarly, nice to meet everyone. We're between you and lunch, so hope you enjoy our session. My claim to fame is that I started teaching before the internet existed. I've had three careers, I guess: a secondary school teacher, then in academia teaching postgrad, undergrad and vocational training courses, and then most recently in Singapore as academic director, and before that a deputy president education in Australia. So I guess I'm looking forward to the panel discussion today and sharing with you some of our insights on leadership in school and education.
The first speaker, Animesh, Priya, what would be, what makes a good leader?
Yeah, thank you. So when I heard this question, I started writing some things down. And so I'll read a few things, but I'll try to make a connection to school leadership as well, right? Because there are two levels to this question. So I said, what makes a good leader? And just from personal experience, you need someone who identifies you, who trusts in you, who backs you, who mentors you, helps you fail up while holding you accountable, has high expectations from you, gives you feedback, all these things, right? And we've been lucky, all of us in this room have been lucky to have such people in our lives who have pushed us up, even though we have failed, and they've helped us learn from this failure and they've championed us. So that luck definitely is there. Now also, when we work with leaders from other organizations, the first thing that we look at is, what is the leadership there look like, right? Do they have the vision? Can we work with them? Are we value aligned? So all kinds of work that we do with our partners, we look for the leader. I really do not understand why this quest for looking for leadership stops outside the school gate. Why we do not consider the school leader, the head of the school, as a CEO of their school as well. Why do we not hold them accountable for similar value alignment, vision, etc.? And so that's what we would love to change, right? So school leaders who we can trust, we select them well, we put them in their position, we hold them accountable. We hold them accountable for what they should be accountable for, student outcomes. And at the same time, just making sure that we support them. It's not a witch hunt. We're not just going out, hey, why is this not happening? put this report out, but actually to put them in the place and support them and treat them as CEOs of their school, where the product is student outcome. So that is not very different from what makes anyone else a good leader. Select them well, you back them, and you make sure that they're continuously learning.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Jerrylyn, what do
Right.
you do actually in a school, in your university or college, as an instructional leader?
Mhm.
What do you do for your students?
For the students, well, basically, I have a little interaction already with the students since I'm a school leader myself. I'd like to add a little bit on what Animesh was saying about good leadership, because I train pre-service teachers. So when you ask instructional leadership, it actually realigns as well with what Animesh is saying, because I train future school leaders. So Animesh mentioned about foresight, and I think it's very important that school leaders have foresight, the ability to predict the future, sort of, and that's what teachers do, right? We try to predict the future so we can check what will be the relevant things that we will be able to teach in our curriculum, right? But to add on that conversation of what school leader should be, a good leader turns scarcity into innovations. In the Philippines, where resources are limited, leadership is not about what you have. It's about what you do with what you have, right? I lead by creating space for teachers, school leaders, and students to thrive by showing that even small, well-crafted, and well-placed innovation can transform entire ecosystems. Just like what we have in faith colleges, our tagline is education that will transform ourselves and then transform the world. Okay? And one more to add, a good leader doesn't just solve today's problem. They build sustainability, whether that sustainability is on finance or the next generation of leaders. That's what makes a good leader, right? So for me, that means making sure that instruction, community extension, research, right, and faculty development, and all of these major roles of school leaders are not just a one-time project, but supported by government partnerships and industry linkages, right? So in my context, I expand that by ensuring that innovations and programs are sustained long after the event. Because real leadership, colleagues, I believe, is measured not just by impact, but by continuity. Thank you. And Peter?
Thank you. I guess my own journey as a leader has focused on three areas. Pretty much practicality, I'm very much a pragmatist. Pedagogy, where we're looking at things as being learning-led and technology-enabled. And then people. I believe all change is based on people. We can certainly write policy at a local, systemic, and national level, but ultimately where the rubber hits the road, people are the enactors of our change. So my advice to future leaders, current leaders, is really to focus on the people in your team, to be present. I learned a long time ago this phrase, MBWA, management by walking around. So it's a little bit about being in the space where policy and practice occurs. And equally as much, I think, from a leader perspective, we have to be resilient as well. The other advice I'd give would be for leaders to be active learners in the space. Certainly in Hong Kong and Singapore, I worked Hong Kong for 16 years, Singapore is my current role. They have programs to support leadership in education at a national level. So I'd fully support enrolling in some of these, looking at those. Often these are also internal programs for mentorship. And I'm a firm believer in not reinventing the wheel. So for leaders, tap into the communities, the networks that you're part of. They're certainly, like the events today, and congratulations to Bett for organising, are opportunities to not reinvent the wheel. That would be my advice, and what I think typifies the behaviours of a good leader.
Prof, how do you actually lead in the age of AI? Especially leaders in school are the principals and senior administrators. How do you lead them? How do you support them? Thank you.
I got the easiest question to answer. So I think drawing on a few policy level reports like the UNESCO one, which talks about disruptions, dilemmas and directions, or equally as much drawing on my framework around using P's, pragmatism, people, pedagogy. In navigating the edge of AI, for me at least personally, looking at my LinkedIn profile, navigating the flood of information. Okay, there's a flood of posts now about AI. At a systemic level, I think what we can advocate for as leaders is to make time in our schedule for these sort of interventions, to look at national systemic sort of roles around equity and access, which is definitely disparate, and to look at, as I've mentioned, supporting networks where you can leverage sort of the common knowledge of AI. If I could wave my magic wand sort of premise, for me, I've been in my new role for a month now. I realized yesterday I passed my 1,000th email. So in that sort of space, I think I deserve a badge. In that space, I think AI I know can help, but at the moment I don't have time for that to help me. So at a practical level, I would advocate for, imagine if there was an ability to give every educator half a day off just to do AI projects, to explore in their own space. And the funding associated with that would just be a magical scenario, I think. So in terms of navigating AI, stay active in the communities, try and keep up with the flood in LinkedIn, but equally as much, just fail forward. You know, try small projects either individually as a leader or with mentorship and support, and that would be my advice.
Okay. How do you actually mentor a leader in the class? How do you support the teachers? Do you send them for personal development? Or do you actually walk around the classroom to get some feedback? Or what do you do?
Right.
Dr. Jerrylyn.
Okay, I'll start and then I'll tag Jay. So this is kind of our bread and butter, right? This is what we do. GSL has existed for around 8 years now, and initially we've just focused heavily on instructional leadership. So we've done programmatic work across many countries in the global south with our local partners. So we don't have one program that we say, hey, why don't you do it? There are a lot of resources that you have to contextualize. We work with you to create a tailored training program. So what does instructional leadership for us entail? And there are 6 broad areas which I will state, and that's kind of how we have to support school leaders as well when it comes to instructional leadership. So the first is just a culture of very high expectation. We have to make sure that school leaders set a culture of high expectation in their schools with everyone in the school, be it teachers, be it non-teaching staff, that culture, and coming back to that culture that, hey, we have to go for the highest possible denominator, that this is what we are running after. Then it has to be about supporting teachers. The first part of that would be effective teaching practices. So school leaders have to be included in training programs, right? A lot of training programs that include teachers just invite teachers. They go back to their classrooms and the school leaders have no idea what they have learned. So if school leaders have no idea what teachers have learned, how can they support school leaders? How can they support the teachers, and how can they ask them, hey, is it working? How can that learning not be isolated in one classroom? How can it grow into the whole school? So that's the effective teaching practices. The third, and I'll give you an anecdote from a recently concluded Gates Foundation literacy and numeracy work we did in Sierra Leone, where the school leader said, oh, now classroom observation is not a witch hunt. Earlier, they would go and say, this is not working, this is not working, this is not working, this is not working. Who wants to hear that? Are you going to be proactively will you proactively work on, oh, I heard these 10 things that are not working, I want to strengthen those? No, it has to be meaningful observation and meaningful feedback as well. So that's the third aspect of providing meaningful feedback to teachers, and then using that data for continuous improvement. And the fifth and sixth are not curriculum related, but aligned with instructional leadership, which is shared leadership. You have to be aware that you are building future school leaders as well, and you cannot do everything. So you have to involve other teachers, everyone else in the school, in your work and share your leadership. And the last is just equity, and equity from multiple perspectives, be it gender, be it special needs. You have to identify what equity means in your context and make sure that you disrupt inequitable patterns. So these 6 things together, supported to school leaders, will make good school leaders. So this is the kind of support and mentoring school leaders need to make sure that they're effective instructional leaders. Jay.
Thank you, Animesh. Supporting what Animesh has said, future leaders are not found, they're grown, right? So we grow them by pairing them with reflective practices, as well as giving pre-service teachers immersion in real schools, not just a 60-hour immersion, a real immersion. And at the same time, linking them with the right mentors, right? And embedding innovation early. Animesh mentioned to me while we were having coffee, not all good teachers can become good school leaders as well. So we have to keep that in mind. Not because they're very good in class, they can be very good managers or school administrators. In the Philippines, we've seen that if you lead or if you let young teachers lead small projects, you'll see them find their light and their voice. And you'll also realize, oh, this one is not meant to admin, this one can be, but maybe a little bit more training. So, like that. As I've said, connecting it with what I said earlier, foresight. We need to try our best to find that seeds, that next generation of school leaders within our pool. We cannot hold that position very, very long. So we need to find someone that can replace us. And we also need to build systems, right? That no matter who will sit on the next line of school leaders, that system will work and will have room for improvement and growth, right? So school leaders, they don't need more paperworks. In your last question about how can school leaders be supported. So we don't need more paperwork, we have a lot of that already. What we need are 3 T's, I call it. Trust, training, and time, right? So globally, we should invest less in control. Animesh mentioned this as well. We need to invest less on control in school leaders, but capacity. More on capacity for school leaders. Treat them as individuals who also grow. The problem with school leaders is that we're usually left on our own without any capacity building directly for school leaders. Not for teachers, for school leaders. So we need that hub. We need technology and tools trainings. We need ethics, AI literacy for school leaders. That's what we need. So let's build ecosystems, colleagues, where leaders are supported by communities, by technology, and by continuous learning. Because when leaders grow, the schools grow. And when the schools grow, the nation succeeds, right? Because at the end of the day, education is the only way to transform communities. That's for me.
Thank you. My 2 cents would be, I guess, drawing on my personal experiences, the different hats I've worn. To be honest, I hadn't heard the term instructional leadership till the report that Animesh shared with the group. The notion of, as Jerry's mentioned, sort of growing your leaders internal to the organization and mentor and support in that space. So they know the context, they have added value, giving them time for that. I'm aware of programs, as I mentioned earlier, in Hong Kong and Singapore, the educators in leadership programs, that if you're in those spaces, I would recommend you advocate to be able to attend those. And equally as much from that perspective, as we've talked about, the notion of trust and the notion of building capacity with the people that are your subordinates, if that's the appropriate word, colleagues. I'm a very collaborative leader, sort of model the 70-20-10 approach. So 70% is getting the job done, 20% is the conversations around are we steering the ship in the right direction around strategy, and 10% is the external forces around policy and regulatory compliance and so on. So as a leader, it's difficult. We're always juggling all of these things comparatively all the time. And this is not a Google keynote, but I would draw back to what that person talked about in the very first day that I sat in this room. And he sort of talked about it's about time or it's all about time. And he was saying in that space that giving people the time to have these sort of conversations, to fail, experiment, iterate, repeat, for me is the best thing that could be done, as I mentioned, at a government sort of level, at a funding level, and equally as much within the different organizations that you're part of. As a leader, to give your staff the time to be mentored, the time to be part of communities, and to bring that knowledge back to your space and your context. Thank you.
So, sorry if I may digress a little, because this is something we deeply care about. There's a management principle called the Peter Principle, which in my understanding of Peter Principle, and many of you will know about it, is that you rise to your highest level of inefficiency. So you're efficient here, you move up. You're efficient here, you move up. You're efficient here, you move up. You're not efficient, you don't move up. So ultimately, you end up staying in a position where you're not efficient. Now club that with lack of career progression for teachers, right? They don't know what else is out there. Many countries do not have an instructional track, an administrative track, a school leadership track. Now, there's only one track to move up, and the goal is to become the school leader, then go to the district, then move up. Unless we create these separate tracks and make them aware via mentoring, make teachers, senior teachers aware of what all possibilities are there, they'll end up being in a position, mostly leading a school, which may not be their strongest suit, and they may not be interested in doing, but because they're not interested in doing it, they're not moving up to the district level as well. So having better competency frameworks, and I guess we'll come to that later, of just defining what are the career pathways and making teachers aware while mentoring them is also very important.
We have one last question, right? Basically, I want to make it more specific question. Huh? Teachers always find that they are not supported. So how can we support the teachers? What should we do? Apart from increasing the pay or giving them an extra promotion and lump them with lots of tasks and modules, looking after the teachers, looking after the students, answering all the parents' questions. Yeah, you have to indulge with parents and community. What do you think that you all can support the teachers?
Okay, since I'm a teacher right now, I think I can answer that on behalf of the teachers on the room. Well, the pay is the best one, right? But definitely, aside from the pay, validation, recognition, that's very important. Even simple recognition, simple tokens. Also, it would be nice to be sent out on trainings like this one, because this is where the teachers grow and the teachers connect. So, but then, again, my context is on the Philippines, right? If you're coming from a country 5 hours away from Kuala Lumpur, it's kind of expensive to send out your 15, 20 teachers here on trainings like this. So it's very hard to find budgetary or financial support for teachers to grow. So one of the things that we do in the Philippines, if I may just share, is we call it LAC session. So I shared it earlier. I think some of the people in the audience were in EdTech Circle earlier. So one of the things that we do for teachers to feel supported is that we develop this habit at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday, or either a Friday or a Wednesday, where teachers of different discipline will go together. They bring their own lunch. We call it Bring Your Own Lunch program. And then they will share the best practices that they have for that week. So it's a weekly thing, sometimes twice a month, because the schedule is loaded. And that's where the teachers are able to share their best practice. Sometimes a teacher will ask, one of your students was crying, what did you do? And the teacher will share that insights and how she handled it, and other senior mentors would reframe or maybe mentor it a little bit. You know, when they feel that they belong on that community, that they are supported and they are able to share, oh yes, I did well on that. And some of my colleagues acknowledge that. It's actually something of which that I believe is effective for teachers, aside from the pay. So that's for me. How about Peter?
I mean, I think to answer the final question, for me the tipping point was COVID.
Prof, can you use how we can actually use AI to support the teachers?
Why not?
Easy.
I mean, I honestly would probably refer to the same thing. For me, one of the tipping points in education was COVID, because e-learning's been around for a long time in those circles of innovation and change. Then we had MOOCs and everything was going to be online and teachers weren't needed and institutions wouldn't exist. And then COVID came along and suddenly Zoom was everywhere. I wish I had shares in that, but unfortunately no. Then we dealt with the black square of death. So all the questions around what does it at the core of being an educator? And I think that's the question in the AI space as well. The education is AI enabled, but human centered. As an educator, reflecting on my past, I know for a fact I could go into a room like this, a lecture or a classroom and so on, within the first minute or two I'll know that one person's not having a good day, that person needs extra support. And how to replicate that in the age of AI is the dilemma I think we're facing. Because has a lot of nuances around what it means to be an educator and the art and craft of teaching. There's definitely a space for AI agents to make your life easier, both in the administrative sense and equally as much in the, as the previous presenters talked about, the personal learning pathways and so on. There's definitely going to be a space where those are becoming more prevalent, the AI agent to support students in the learning management systems or education spaces. But I always think in terms of going forward, there'll be the space for the emotional context, the connection, the human nature of teaching and so on. That's the dilemma where we're facing, that shouldn't be replaced in terms of allowing AI ethics and equity and access and all the dilemmas that we're facing. The only final point I'd make is just tap into the networks that you have to deal with these issues. In the AI space, I've learned a considerably amount of, I guess, personal growth in terms of just trying. And to carve out some time for that to just try, I discovered when we're rewriting 40 higher degree research policies, for example, that AI can actually make some of that space easy for me. The challenge in the time space is it's not always accurate. So we know historically hallucinations occurred and things will become always in that space, which is why the human aspect of being in the AI world where we live in now is the core, I think, for me. Yeah.
Are your teachers in school happy if they have a robot teaching?
I mean, I've definitely seen ones where, and I've done a presentation where my avatar would talk for some of the time and could answer questions. I gave it my CV, my background, I gave it a lot of information, and it was able to do that until it got one of the key things wrong, and that was the assessment date. So there's all these things where, as an enabler of us for technology, and technology has always been in that space since before the internet, my teaching career. And I love the same people saying, oh, you're an e-learning expert, an AI expert now. I said, well, no, I wasn't born that way. It's not in my genetics. It was that way because of network support, attending sessions like today, and ultimately with support from higher up and support systemically across government funding and so on. So I'm not sure if I answered the question, but that's at least my take on it.
If I may, about that
Do you have
robot
teachers?
teachers, we have none yet so far. But then maybe it cannot happen because for teachers, we build relationships and human connections. It's something that robots cannot do. With just the face, I'm not so sure if there are more teachers in the room, but if you are a teacher and a student comes in, just the look on the face and just the expression, you already know that something is wrong. You notice with the way this person behaved that something is wrong. I know that there is an AI tool that can predict the facial expression now, but I don't think it can really truly assess that, or it can really truly give that human connection, right? So no, we have no robot teachers yet, thank God. All right, but I think we're gonna get some robot assistants soon.
We have many in India. Animesh, would you like to continue?
Yeah, so definitely. So let me try to come back to the supporting school leader bit, right? What does it take? So it takes a village to raise a child, right? It takes the whole educational ecosystem to support a school leader. There has to be bottom-up approach. There are organizations that are doing innovation, showing that school leadership work matters. It has positive influence on student outcomes. That's very important. But that by itself is not going to cut it. There has to be a top-down approach as well of better enabling conditions. Unless the school leader supervisor is asking the school leader about student assessment and student data, school leaders' focus is not going to be on student learning, right? If the data being asked is how many meals, how much money spent, how many boundary walls, how much water, then that's where the focus is also going to be. So that enabling condition has to change as well. So both top-down and bottom-up. And we try to do that, right? So we have regional hubs. So we have a Latin American and Caribbean regional hub, 7 countries, Southeast Asian hub, 11 countries, government, NGOs, researchers, funders, everyone's a part of it to strengthen school leadership. As we are running out of time, I will end with the GEM report, the UNESCO GEM report on school leadership, the 4 key areas they highlighted to say, how do you strengthen and professionalize school leaders? The first is trust and empower. So good autonomy, good enabling conditions. The second is select, develop, and recognize, fair selection. according to standards, hold them accountable, assess school leaders well, and make sure that there are incentives when you assess them. The third, I spoke about this earlier as well, shared leadership. And the last is invest in system leaders. So make sure that the school leader supervisor is asking the school leader about instructional leadership as well. It cannot happen in isolation. The work has to happen both up, down, and bottom up as well. And if you want to know more about the hub, please find me after this session.
Okay, thank you to Animesh, Dr. Jerry, and Dr. Peter. Peter Duffy, yeah? I always wanted to call him Patrick Duffy.
My dad is
Do you know the actor?
His dad is Patrick Duffy, but not that Patrick Duffy.
All right, okay. Now, to sum up on strong performing schools, of course, the key word here is back to the senior administrators, the teachers who actually support bridging between the school vision and mission and to the parents' expectation. Of course, parents want all their children to have high achievement. Now with AI, all our kids are all around the world, yeah, looking for opportunity as an AI career. But I need to tell the panelists, please look into AI systems for inclusive education. We have a lot of children who are actually being packed into a normal school. You know, they can't put up with normal kids because they are special kids. All right, so you can actually look into that in your school. So just a short and practical checklist on the strong performing schools under leadership, instructional leadership is we are all focusing on teaching and learning. Yeah, that will be one. Developing the teachers, they need our support. Using our data smartly, collect data why students are not doing well, okay? And then build a positive culture that we are all human, yes we are, but we must have a humanity role. Yeah, we have business, but we are also humane entrepreneurs. And lead by example, leaders, lead by example, engage with families and communities, drive continuous improvement. Thank you everyone.
Thank you.